Welcome back to FreeEduHub. Today we are covering active reconnaissance. As you know, we have already covered passive reconnaissance earlier. We are learning some techniques and countermeasures to protect our own network. Just keep a note of it that this is an educational course and we are covering it for educational purposes. All tools and techniques used in this course shall be used for academic purposes only. Let's see some of the basic key concepts that we'll be covering in this chapter. We'll be determining the address range of networks, then we'll identify active network nodes, identifying and mapping the open ports, operating system, fingerprinting, and then we'll be looking at network mapping. So let's try to understand first of all that what is active reconnaissance. The primary goal of performing active reconnaissance, often referred to as the port scanning, is to identify open and closed ports as well as the services running on the given system. So when the penetrator would like to penetrate in a computer or in a network or a target machine, his or her first target is to identify the ports which are open and the ports which are closed and the services and running and the other applications which are running on that remote system. Now if you remember, we have covered a lab about Nmap. In that we covered that how to find out that which ports are open on the remote computer or not. If you're not clear about that, you can look for that lab on our channel. They are already posted over there and it's telling about the scanning through Nmap, etc. Now active reconnaissance is a critical step in attack process because an attacker can succeed only by exploiting one or more weaknesses, identifying which services are present and running on the target system. It helps the attacker plan an effective attack. Now once the attacker would scan all the ports which are open on your computer, he'll be able to get the details about the operating system, the ports which are available, the vulnerabilities of the system, and the vulnerabilities of the system will be highlighted with CVE code. We have covered CVE code also in one of the earlier labs. You can follow that, and using that particular weakness of that target system, then he tries to use a payload using Metasploit or Kali Linux to penetrate in the remote machine. Active reconnaissance also helps to determine the course of action for future attacks, etc. because once the nature of the running service is identified, an attacker can select the best tools for the attack. So he'll be using most probably Kali Linux, which is a penetration testing tool, to launch the attack. Now sometimes it happens that they'll penetrate in the network and then they'll leave some back doors open so that if they want to come back again and penetrate on the system, they'll be able to do that. Now to give you an example over here, let's take an example of IIS and Apache server. Both of them are used to run or host the web applications or to host your website. Now if an attacker may have a specific tool to target vulnerabilities found in Microsoft Internet Information Services, which is IIS web server, he'll use that toolkit to penetrate in the IIS, but he cannot use the same set of tools for Apache web server. He'll have to use some different tools in order to penetrate in the system. That's why they say that it's really important to find out that what is the operating system and services running on the remote computer. Now next we'll be looking at the IP address ranges, etc., determining the address of ranges of the network. Now gathering the information about the range of internet protocol addresses used by the target. Two methods are there, manual or automatic, in order to find the details of the network range. Manual registrar query requires a direct query of the registration site for a specific registration information, and automatic registration query provides the information related but does not use the third party or any web interface. Now it is very important to know the IP address and the range of IP address of a target website or a target network device. For example, if a penetrator is trying to penetrate in a network, he'll have to find the range of the IP addresses which are used for different VLANs. Now once they'll get the details of that, then they'll craft their attack to find the to scan the complete subnet and find the operating systems which are there on that subnet, and then finding the vulnerabilities of those machines so that they can use the toolkits to exploit those machines. Next step is to identify the active machines. Now, in order to identify the active machines, there are lots of different techniques which are used. First of all is war dialing, then we have wardriving and related activities, then we have pinging and port scanning. Now, war dialing used to be the technique that was very successful in 1980s and 90s, when the hackers actually used the modems and dial-up numbers in an effort to locate other modems. An attacker who picked a town or a random or a dialed up a range of the telephone numbers in that town would likely turn up several computers with modems attached. So that was the main purpose of war dialing, that they were trying to know which are the active computers which are connected to the modems, and then they were trying to get access to that. But since that's not the process these days, it's not being used anymore. The next one is wardriving and related activities. Now, wardriving is nothing but roaming around in your neighborhood with your mobile phone, which can detect or which can scan the wireless networks, or the people who are carrying the laptop in their cars and they are roaming around trying to scan the network and finding the weakest access points and their securities which can be compromised. Now, if you are using a mobile application, you can see that there are lots of free applications available on Play Store and Apple Store, with the help of which you can find the security levels and the channels of the wireless networks. Now, once they'll identify a weakest access point in the neighborhood, they'll use their own techniques, for example Kali Linux, etc., in order to penetrate in those wireless networks. Next is pinging. In pinging, you'll ping the other computer just to see that if the other computer is up or down, and you'll craft the attack according to that. We'll be covering it in detail. And then we have port scanning, where we'll scan the ports to find the computers which are active and which are not responding. Now, again, explaining war dialing, legacy technique in 1980s and 90s, when it was used for footprinting tool. An attacker would pick a town or a random or a dial-up range of telephone numbers in that town to turn up several computers with the modems attached. Has extremely limited utility today and has given a rise to many similar techniques which are essential for search on open communication ports, etc. As the picture indicates, wire driving is related activities, the process of locating wireless access points and gaining information about the configuration of each access point, enables an attacker to gain quick and easy access to the internal network of the company and ease of carrying a small device, for example a wireless adapter or a mobile phones or a GPS device receiver, and a software to collect the information that give rise to war walking, war jogging, war biking, or war flying. You can call war anything, and nowadays we have war drones as well. Now, if we are talking about it further, there are different tools that we use in order to do war driving. AirSnort is quite powerful for that, which is used for wireless cracking. AirSnare is used, an intrusion detection system that notifies that an unapproved machine connects to your wireless network. Then we have Kismet, a wireless network detector sniffer for intrusion detection system commonly found in Linux. And then we have NetStumbler, which is a wireless network detector also available for Mac and handheld devices. Now, it's fairly simple to crack any wireless network. We might be covering it sometime in any of the labs that we'll be covering in future, so keep an eye on that. Now, the next thing which they are talking about over here is pinging. Pinging is a technique used to determine if a system is active. Now, you'll see that in most of the companies, the ICMP command or the ping command is usually disabled, so that you cannot find that if the other computer or the machine is responding or not. So what hackers or these persons who are trying to penetrate in the network would do is that they would try to ping the machines on the network to see if they are responding or not. When we block ping, we have lots of issues also, because then we cannot see if the other computer is working or not. But we can define that on which computers we want to allow ping and for which computers we don't want to allow ping. And then we can even define that if it is an admin machine, we can allow that he can ping rest of the computers, but rest of the computers will not be able to ping each other. Now ping network utility sends an internet control message protocol, which we call as ICMP. It requesting that the target, the ping message responds to the sender or not. And we can even, it can be used to identify active machines, measure to speed up which packets are moved from one place to another, because it shows us a time to live with a time bar with that, which is a time to live, and we can see that what's the response time and how active is the computer at a particular moment of time. Now just to show you an example, I am running a Kali Linux virtual machine. In this Kali Linux, if I'll go to the terminal and if I'll type ifconfig, it would give me the IP address of this machine, which is 192.168.189.128. Now if we'll try to ping this machine from our host machine, we can see that we are getting a response from that machine. It means that we are able to reach that machine. The response time is 1 ms, which is perfect. We sent 4 packets and we received 4 packets. But if I'll send another ping command to another computer, which is my Windows 11 virtual machine, which is currently off, as you can see that I'm not getting any responses from that. So by only sending a ping command or a ping to an IP address, it responds. It means that the other computer is open and is active so that the attacker can penetrate on that machine. Now next is about the port scanning. We used Nmap software for that earlier, and in port scanning, a technique used to discover what services are active on the system, designed to probe each port on the system in an effort to determine which ports are open, and very effective method for gaining the host information. As you know, I have 2 virtual machines running on my VMware workstation. One is Kali Linux, the other one is Windows 11. If you want to know how to install virtual machines in VMware workstation, you can check it on my channel. And now if we want to do a bit deep scan on our Windows 11 machine, so I'll type in a command and the IP address -SVO and -V. Now it's scanning all the ports which are open on my Windows 11, and the name of the services are also there. As you can see, it's a bit deep scan as compared to the previous one, but if I don't want that, I'll simply enter Nmap and the remote target address, so it would give me a list of the ports which are open with their service name, but it won't tell me lots of other details which were shown when we went and did a bit of an aggressive scan. Now as you can see that since these ports are identified, now the attacker can target using these ports. Now that's the benefit of port scanning. Now keep in mind that there are 65,535 ports, which is UDP and TCP ports available, and when it comes to scanning the ports, UDP is relatively slower than the TCP ports. So with that thing, we have a couple of important ports over here which we must be aware of, and they are quite common in the computer. So if you're scanning any network, you must have a clear idea of what are the ports and what is their functionality. First of all, we have port 20 and 21, which is used for file transfer protocol. Then we have port 22, which is used for SSH, which is a secure shell. Then we have port 23, which is used for telnet. Port 25 is used for email. We can change this port as well, and it is used on our Exchange servers. Then we have port 53 dedicated for DNS servers, port 80 for internet communication, for websites, etc. Port 110 and 143 both are dedicated for Exchange servers. Then we have 161 and 162. This is for SNMP if we want to scan any devices on the network, like the switches, routers, printers, etc. if they are responding or not. We can check their health status by using SNMP on port 161 and 162. Then finally we have 1433 and 1434 for our MS SQL server. Now in TCP port scanning, flags are used for transmission control protocol to describe the status of the packets and the communications that goes through that. So we'll be using Wireshark for that, and I'll be showing you shortly. Now flags are a bit sets in the packet header to describe the specific behavior of the packet, with the help of which we can understand that what's the communication taking place when the packets are traveling on the network. Now TCP features enables the things which helps us in identifying that what kind of packets are flowing on the network. For example, SYN is for synchronization, ACK is for acknowledgement, FIN is for final, RST is for reset, PSH is for push, URG urgent, and CWR is congestion windows reduce flag, and ECEN is the echo flag indications. Now we'll see that well in detail when I'll show you Wireshark on the computer itself. Now to understand it with the basic things which are there on the flags as we see on Wireshark, TCP connect scan is a type of scan and most reliable, but also the easiest to detect, such as it is identified for logged in because it establishes a connection between the user and the scanner. Now whenever a communication is taking place, there is a SYN, which is a synchronization and acknowledgement from the other user that I'm shaking hand, you shake hand with me, and then once the connection is established, it's a two-way communication with that. Now if the port is closed and the other party is not responding, it is then passed the command as the reset acknowledgement, because they move the hand to shake hand with the other person. But if the other person is not responding, it means that they are not willing to shake the hand. It means other person is not there and they are not responding to that. Now TCP SYN scan is a type of scan commonly referred as half open scan as well. For the TCP connections that is not established, the scanner does not complete the connection, and this type of scan is originally developed as a stealthy mean of evading intrusion detection system and intrusion protection systems, so that they cannot detect it. As the connect scan scans for the open ports like SYN and acknowledgement, where the closed ports would respond as the reset, that it's a reset connection. The person tried to shake hand but the other person is not responding, so it would give a comment that the connection is closed. Now we have TCP FIN. This is a scan attempt to detect the port by sending a request to the close or non-existent connection. This type of an attack is carried out by sending a finalize or a final packet to the target port. The port responds with the reset that it is not responding, so it won't get any response from there, and it would show it as the reset signal. Then we have TCP null scan. This is designed to send the packets with no flag set open, and the goal is to elicit response from the system to see how it responds to the packets and determine which ports are open versus the closed ports and the operating system which is used at the other end. This can also help in determine which operating system on the target is running. So by finding the operating system, the penetrator would try to craft their own kind of attack in order to target that specific operating system. Next we have over here as TCP port scanning, which is TCP ACK scan. And in this one, the scan attempts to determine the access control list rule set to identify whether the stateless inspection is being offered or filters using the ICMP, which is the ping command to be considered as filters. And then we have the TCP Christmas tree scan. This scan sends the packets to the target port with flags in set combination with the illegal or illogical, for example, finish, push, or urgent. The results are examined to see if the system responds or the ports are closed, or whether it should be sending a reset command to the other party. Now keep all these commands in mind, because when we will be using Wireshark, you'll be able to understand it in a better way. You'll open Wireshark first of all, then you'll have to identify which port is active on your computer. Now as you know, the IP address of this virtual machine is 192.168.189.129. So we'll browse internet on this computer and we'll try to capture the packets using Wireshark on a remote PC. So in order to do that, I'll type the IP address ip.addr and then I'll type two equal signs over here, and I'll type the IP address of my target, which is 192.168.189.129, and then I'll double click on this ether. Now you can see that it is now capturing some traffic which is coming from this machine. If I'll, for example, click on any of the links over here, it would capture some packets, and you can see that it is capturing the packets. You can press stop over here to stop the capture. Now if you'll pay attention to this one, it is actually talking about acknowledgement, ACK, and then you'll even find rest of the other flags as well, which is sequence number of it, TCP connection going from the source to the destination, TCP segment, and then rest of these details. So that's how they get the detail of the remote target and the sequence number, etc., the protocol which is being used in order to communicate, what was the length of it, and all those relevant details. Now once this is done, then they analyze the traffic which is captured. You can further look into the details of different packets which were captured. There is a full video available on our channel related to Wireshark as well. You can check that if you're interested in that. Now after this one, we look at the active reconnaissance countermeasures, deny all, an approach to access control designed to block all traffic to all ports unless such traffic has been explicitly approved. Now that's the default behavior of a firewall, that whenever you are configuring firewalls, the default behavior is deny, that we don't want to allow anything which we don't recognize. So if a new attack comes, or a new someone is trying to access the network from the new IP address or anything, by default it would be blocked by the firewall. Then is a proper design, as the aspect of the carefully planned network includes the security measures for intrusion detection, intrusion prevention, and firewalls, etc. Firewall testing should be conducted, a way to verify the firewall's capability to detect and block the undesirable traffic, that if a traffic is coming which they don't know or they don't recognize, it should be blocked over there. And then they must check that if the firewall is working and all the policies and rules that has been enforced on the firewall are properly being hit. It means that they are being used. It's not like you have defined a rule or a policy on the network and it is not being executed. And now in the firewalls also, the priority of the request that you are receiving and the priority of the traffic which is received on that plays an important role as well. So the way you define the policies should be defined in a way that the topmost priority comes first, then the second one, then the third one, and so on. Port scanning is a technique that utilizes the same tools that an attacker used to attack the system with the goal of better understanding of the methods involved, and security awareness is always very important to educate your people, to let them know that what kind of attacks usually comes through emails and stuff, because as we say that security is everyone's responsibility. Now they are just talking about Nmap again. We have already seen some options. One of the most widely commonly used tool for port scanning, etc., available in Windows, Linux, Mac operating systems, etc. I have shown you through Kali Linux, but if you want, you can install Nmap on your computer, Windows computer, and you can use it from there as well. Now they are giving you an example of an Nmap scan which they sent, or they ran on the computers. It is just showing the packets which are filtered exactly like it showed us the ports which are open and the ports which are closed. Now here we are seeing the mapping the open ports and map by network mapper. It result displays the status of the ports and their states. For example, if it's closed, open, or filtered. Open means that the target device is accepting the connections. For example, it is open to communicate through port 80 for any internet traffic which is coming. Closed port is not listening or accepting any connections, and filtered ports are the ones which are blocked by the firewall, etc. Now there are lots of tools available in the internet with the help of which you can scan the network and the IP addresses. Now you can, as you can see, scan the entire network or subnet by using the tool like Free IP Scanner. It is giving you the IP address, the host name of the computer, and the MAC address of all the computers on the network. Now this information is more than enough for the hacker to get details about different computers on your network, their MAC addresses, if they are active or not, and all those things. The other kind of software which is quite common as well is Angry Scanner. Here it's even telling you the ping response of it, it's telling you the host name of it, and even some of the ports which are active on this machine. Advanced IP Scanner is also quite powerful in the market. It's showing you the status of the computers, it's showing you the name, host name, IP address, manufacturer of the computers, and even the MAC address of the computers. Now here you can see you can scan multiple subnets as well over here, with the help of which it would tell you a complete range of the IP addresses. So if an attacker is there on premises and he is using his own laptop, he can scan all the computers and different subnets on the same network. Now we have operating system fingerprinting. In operating system fingerprinting, we have open ports that we can be discovered by providing clues to what operating system and the target is running. Now there are different tools for that, and we'll see it in a minute. Purpose of operating system fingerprinting is to determine the operating system running on the target machine. So once we'll know that what's the target operating system, we can craft the attacks according to that. Once an operating system is identified, it's possible to better focus on the attack. Two methods are there. One is active fingerprinting, the other one is passive fingerprinting. If you talk about operating system fingerprinting, the tools that usually used for that is Xprobe and Nmap. Now it's an specially crafted packets to the target system. When response is received from the target system, it makes an educated guess as to the operating system or what is the operating system which is being used. Examples are Xprobe 2 and Nmap. So in order to see that, we'll have to go to our Kali Linux operating system. Once you're there on your Kali Linux, make sure that you have Xprobe 2 installed on your Kali Linux operating system. You'll have to be logged in as a super user. Once that's done, you'll type sudo and then you'll type Xprobe 2 and you'll enter the IP address of the target machine, which is Windows 11 in our case. Once we'll press enter over here, you'll see that it is fingerprinting all the relevant details of the target operating system which is over there, and then it is even telling that which ports are open, closed, if it's responding or not, the port numbers, and even the possible operating system which is used. Now if we want to see for a specific website, for example, if we want to check it for google.com and press enter, it would check their details also, and it would tell us the basic details about the operating system and other things which are there. So it's guessing the probability is 100% that they are using either an HP Mac operating system, and these are the versions of it. So that's how they try to find out the details of the target system. After that, we have the passive one, which is talking about it does not interact with the target system. It monitors and captures the network traffic, just like we saw it in Wireshark. The traffic is analyzed for patterns and suggestions, which operating system is in use, and offer a level of stealth, for example, harder to detect the tools, etc. The tools that we use is POF tool or EtherCap. EtherCap is the older name of Wireshark. Now let's check it again on our Kali Linux. We have our operating system over here, and if we'll go to POF, it is now executing on your computer. Of course, you'll have to install it first. Now see what happens if I'll open my browser, for example my Firefox, and I would try to browse to different websites. It is now noting down automatically the IP addresses and rest of the details, operating system, etc., whatever I'll try to access over here. So just see if I'll type in www on my browser here, www.go.com, and press enter. It is now searching and trying to find the details of that website and the other the hops that it's having on different websites in order to load it, and the information which is there on that specific website. So that's the passive way of getting the details. It's actually loading the website, but in the background it's trying to know certain details about the servers through which it is actually trying to get the details. If you'll click in any of the links which are here provided by Kali itself, you can see again it is searching for the IP addresses and the operating system details, etc., which could be there. So that's the passive way of finding the details about the remote target. Next, we have different mapping tools which are there, which helps us in noting down the overall network topology. It creates a network diagram to show the vulnerable or the potential vulnerable devices on the target network. Now there are different tools available for that. We can manually create the list of the computers and devices that we have on the network, or we can use a software or a utility to create a list of discovered or the devices which can generate visual map of the entire network. Now the tools which are quite common over there are Microsoft Visio, Network Notepad, SolarWinds, and Network Mapper, etc. Now Microsoft Visio is a tool just to draw the diagram, but there are softwares with the help of which we can actually map the entire network. Now if you'll go to SolarWinds website, that's a tool that they are using in order to map your entire network and to show all the devices that it can automatically detect it from the network. Now that's a basic interface that it automatically scans. You give it a set of IP addresses and subnets, etc., and it would scan the network according to that, and then it would draw a map of your devices, something similar to this one. Now you can select which things you want to show, for example router at layer 3 switches, or wireless routers, wireless access points, VoIP, etc. You can choose the devices which should appear over here. Then even you can select them by choosing their link speed or the devices as mentioned in the previous one. Further, you can arrange them in a sequence so it looks like you have a complete picture of the entire network. And if you want to export all that information, you can easily export it using the export tools, where you'll have all the IP addresses, host name, and rest of the other details of your entire network. So that sums up the entire network. It is telling you about the operating system, the vendor type, switches, the pooling method which is used for this one, what's the description of it, MAC address, and all those details which helps you in understanding and managing your own network. After this one, we have another thing which is analyzing the results. Now once everything is done, you have collected all the details about the services which are discovered. You can explore the vulnerabilities for each service and the operating system, and then you can research and locate any potential exploits which are there in the system. The attacker can use the internet search engines to gather information about the operating system, your organization, the kind of operating systems you are using, the kind of systems that you have. They can even collect the information by scanning your network, or they can do it through the passive reconnaissance as well by looking at your social media websites, the job postings which are posted from your organization. For example, if you're looking for a guy in information security, it would be mentioned that the candidate must have these set of expertise. So by reading those details, they try to understand or to get an idea that what kind of operating systems and technologies they are using in their organization. So that was about active reconnaissance, the summary of it, that we determined the address range, etc. for any target system using different tools. Then we identified the active network nodes, we identified the mapping tools and the ports, etc., which can be exploited. We even look at the operating system fingerprinting, which was active and passive, and then we looked at some of the network mapping tools. So that's it for today. Thank you very much.